Hey guys, Chris from the Ultimate Recycler. Welcome back to another Deca-Scrap video. I did start one on power boards recently, but I thought we need to step back a couple of steps and look at individual components and just see what's worthwhile there, and then we can develop into all sorts of equipment and we'll know what smaller pieces are worth chasing. So we're going to get right down to tin tacks here. In this series we're going to look at these chokes. They're a form of inductor. You'll see them on power boards and all sorts of boards. This is actually a board from a CRT TV. These things come in all sorts of different sizes. They are really easy to get copper from, but we need to do a bit of experimenting to see if it's worthwhile. So sit down, enjoy this. We'll go through a couple of Deca-Scrap ideas on some different sizes, and hopefully by the end of it you'll have a really good idea of whether they're worth taking off the board, whether we should just sell them as transformers, or whether it's worth rescuing the copper. So in this video we're going to do 3 separate trials, and we've got 10 of each size. Now these are the most common sizes you find on normal printed circuit boards. We have the larger ones that look to be about 1.25 inches across, to give you a point of reference, or that's about 33 mil. The smaller ones around about 30 mil, about 1.1 inches. I'm trying to satisfy all your measuring requirements, and the little ones here around about 1 inch, some are a bit less than 1 inch, so about 24 mil. So they all vary a little bit too in the thickness of the copper. You can see this one back here has quite thick copper, whereas some of them have a finer copper. So we'll do 3 separate experiments here just to see if perhaps the little ones aren't worth mucking around with, but the big ones are quite lucrative. We've just got to work out, we'll keep track of our time, I'll show you how they're easy to knock apart, and we will end up with a nice pile of lovely copper. Now before we get into actually rescuing the copper, we've got to work out if they're worth getting off the board. Some things can be a big effort to get off the boards, and that can make them unviable in its own right. These ones come off pretty easily. The larger ones do need a little bit more effort. There's a couple of different options. A larger screwdriver tends to just pop them off the board pretty easily, just like that. So they're not that hard to get off the boards. I think they're worth saving even if you throw them in for transformers. I'll just do it a couple of the smaller ones. Okay, there's one on here as well. We can also use some multi-grips. They're usually pretty easy to pull off, and it doesn't matter if you break the surrounds, because I've got to break that anyway, and in fact that'll even save a little bit of time. So that was a medium-sized one. And there was a couple of smaller ones on this board just here, and again just the pliers, probably as quick as any. So it's really just no time at all to pull them off the board. Okay, we're back at this Deca-Scrap video today. You've seen how easy it is to get these inductors off the boards. We do have to consider that the boards, depending on where you are, can be sold as is. And at the moment, e-waste bin in Australia, I think, is offering about 28 cents a kilo for power boards. So given that transformers are paying around about $1 a kilo, that leaves, you know, we're making, what's that, 72 cents a kilo extra. So you've got to weigh all that up. But as far as this video goes, and we will do a separate video just on power boards once we go through all the components that are worth taking off, and then you can make up your own mind how far you want to go. So at this stage we're looking at these inductors or chokes, and if you've got them at this stage, do you just sell them as transformers, or is it worth getting the copper? Now it depends what you want to do. If you're just in it for the dollars and you don't have a lot of time, probably throw them in as transformers, and this video will show you a few figures on that. If you are after the copper and perhaps you melt it, or you do some creation where you want the copper wire, that's a whole different story. So you need to work out your aims first. I'm just looking at it from a dollar return perspective. So we'll weigh up each of these three groups of chokes or inductors, and we'll see what they're worth as is, because they would just go as transformers as they are. And then we'll see what's involved in getting the copper wire out of them, and if we can value add enough to make our time worthwhile. Okay, so let's go through each sample. We'll get a weight and a price as they are. The smallest ones here we've got 200 grams. So out comes the trusty notepad. I'm calling these the transformer style because we will do videos on other types of chokes or inductors. So the small ones, we got 200 grams at $1 a kilo at the moment, or at least that's what we'll work on for nice round figures. We've got 20 cents. So to sell them as transformers, we've got 20 cents. Let's weigh up the middle ones. As expected, these ones weigh a little bit more. We've got about 320 grams. So I'll go medium. It's like we're ordering fries, isn't it? 320 at the same price gives us 32 cents. And now for large. And the large ones weigh, oh, we've almost got 700 grams there. So large, 700 grams. Same price gives us 70 cents. So that's what they're worth to sell them as transformers. But we're going to try and rescue the copper. So I'll go through each lot and I'll show you for a start a couple of options for breaking them up. And once we decide on our preferred option, we'll keep track of our time and we'll just work out the efficiencies and the final values of taking the copper out of them. Now, we'll go for a couple of medium-sized ones and I'll show you a few options. I said at the start of this video that they're very easy to get the copper out of, mainly because the surround of them, the frame of them is a very brittle ferrous, what's it called? Ferrite material. So a couple of hits in the right place and they shatter really easily. There's a plastic frame and a center ferrite core, and what it means is with a few hits, I'm being a bit too gentle here because I didn't want stuff to go everywhere, but a few hits and all of the frame comes out and the center piece usually slides out pretty easily. I didn't break it enough. Like that, and then you're left with a spool. So that's the way to attack these for a start. The way to get the copper off the spool is a couple of options, but just breaking up the frame is the first stage. And like I said, when you're pulling them off the boards, if you break a bit of the framework, it doesn't matter because we need to get down to the coil anyway. So the small ones are much the same. You don't need much of a hit. I try not to shatter them too much because then you've got too much rubble to pick up, and that's how quick and easy they are. Another larger one here. Some of them do have a little bit of resin on them or some wax that seals them, but as long as you get that center hub out, the plastic frame on the edge really doesn't matter. I'll have to get that part off actually. There we go. You need to get down to the spool. So from this stage, the generally accepted method is to put a screwdriver through the hole, grab the exposed wires. There'll be two at the ends, but you want the ones that actually unravel, and it's normally an alternate coil, and basically you just unravel them. So they pull off really quickly. The spool just spins on the screwdriver, and once it's done the first coil, it automatically goes to the second coil, and that's it. Then we have empty plastic spool, and the wire can then be either scrunched up, or I like to just coil it around. It's a bit neater. It probably takes a fraction longer, but then when you scrunch them into a ball, you can't get quite as much weight into a bucket. So that's all I do. And then we have a nice piece of number 2 or burnt copper, because it's lacquer coated. It's not Milbury or number 1, and there's sometimes a little bit of solder on the ends. That's not going to matter. So that's how I do them. That's how most scrappers do them. The other option I mucked around with a few different ideas. I found some large pruners, and you can actually slice the coils this way. And what that does is it breaks the plastic. Now, it's a bit awkward to do, probably better doing it this way. And this, it's more fiddly, and you do get lots more bits of plastic around, but it does enable you to actually get the coils off as a coil. So there we've got half of it done. I don't need to wrap it up, it's ready to throw straight in the bucket. The disadvantages, it is a little bit slower getting the pruners in the right spot. You do also have fragments of plastic fly everywhere, so in the interests of cleanup, I don't use this method. Certain cutters may do it a little bit better, and some coils seem to be more brittle than others, but I like the unravel method with the screwdriver in the middle. It's probably the most fun, and it's the neatest because you don't have fragments of plastic flying everywhere. So that's how I'm going to do these for the trial. Let's get to it. Let's go with the small ones first. I'll just break all the coils out first. Like that. So I'll get all those out first, and then we'll look at getting the copper off the coils. Okay, that's got those done. As you can see, some of them do present a bit of a problem getting the ferrite core out of the middle. So it can be fiddly, but it took us 2 minutes to get those out. Now the cleanup, we've got bits of broken ferrite which will stick to a magnet. I've got a magnet inside a tea towel here, just because it's easy to pick up the magnetic ferrite stuff which can go in our shred bucket. Just leaves the plastic for the bin, and this way it doesn't get our magnet all dirty, because we can just take the magnet out from behind the tea towel and it all falls off. And now to salvage our copper. Alright, I've wrapped a few strands, a few different coils together just to make a larger windings there. Saves a bit of time. Okay, that was fiddly. That's all the copper wire we got out of those small ones. Now, some of them did present a bit of a problem. The wire was very fine, it was hard to find the ends. Some of them had a little bit of wax or resin or something on them, which made them hard to unwind. And a couple of the plastic spools had broken, and I actually slipped one off the end. So everyone's a little bit different to pull apart, but they are fiddly, and there's very little weight in copper. We've got, that looks like about 80 grams, as near as those scales can register. So the small ones, we had about 80 grams of copper, and we're going to work at about $10 a kilo for ease of calculations. It's round about that, I think, for number 2 copper wire at the moment, which is 80 cents. So we've only gone from 20 cents to 80 cents. We have a little bit of ferrous, but not enough to weigh or calculate a few cents. And we've thrown out a little bit of plastic that we can't do much with. So we've gained 60 cents, and that took about 10 minutes because they were fiddly. That was about 2 minutes to break the frames apart to get to the coils, and about nearly 8 minutes to actually unwind them all for reasons I've just explained. So 10 minutes, 80 cents, 6 eighths. Whoops, that's $4.80. So $4.80 an hour. If we remember that we had 20 cents worth in the first place, that leaves us with 60 cents improvement for an hour, which is going to be 60 cents improvement for 10 minutes. So that's $3.60. $3.60 for an hour's work. Now that's just, obviously you wouldn't want to do this for an hour, it'd be sore, you'd end up with really sore fingers. So at least it presents the figures for you to make your own decisions. So that was the small ones. They were fiddly. Let's see if the medium ones are much better. Okay, that was a bit quicker. They actually took about 1.5 minutes, and I think they'll be easier to get the copper off as well. Okay, that was better. We've got heavier gauge copper. I actually laid the strands out and wrapped a few together to save a bit of time. So heavier gauge copper, which equals more weight. We've got about 160 grams there, and it took less time. So we had about 1.5 minutes to break the coils out. And then we had just over 6 minutes to unravel the spools. Now I've already written some in here because I thought I was filming before and I wasn't. So we've got 160 grams of copper, which is $1.60. When we take off our 30 odd cents for what we had before, that's about $1.30 now. We took us 8 minutes in total, which works out at about $9.75 an hour. So much better than our $3.60 an hour for the little ones. This was the mediums. Let's see how the large work out. Now they were much more satisfying to smash open. They were generally pretty quick, although because the wire is quite a lot thicker, I had to actually use the side cutters to snip it off some of the terminals. And there was one there with a bit of a circuit board on, which I had to cut off. So just under 2 minutes again, probably about the same time, but it'll be interesting to see if it takes even less to get the copper off the spools, and we're certainly going to have more weight in copper. Damn it, again I thought I was filming and I wasn't. Here's the figures for the larger ones. They were much more fun. Good heavy thick copper. It weighs almost 300 grams, and that works out there at $22 an hour. I just did all the calculations before, but I forgot to film it. So there you go. That's a pretty good representation of pulling these things off boards and whether they're worth pulling apart or not. Okay guys, let's wind this video up now. Apologies if the last bit of it felt a bit rushed. I was trying to finish filming before my phone went flat, and as it turned out, I forgot to film when I should have, and then it went flat anyway. So we're back here the next day to do a conclusion. The bottom line is that hopefully you've learned a bit about micro scrapping these chokes. I don't have a big one left, I've scrapped them all, but that's a medium and that's a small. From the figures we saw, if you're purely doing it for the dollars and worried about your hourly rate and getting good value for your time, the larger ones, definitely in my book, they come off easy. They're actually fun to unravel. There's very little waste other than the plastic spool, and the copper mounts up really quickly. So I'm going to be scrapping those out, micro scrapping those. The medium ones I'll probably do. The little ones I think I'll throw in with my transformers. Now, we have to make decisions on what we're going to do with our boards, and we'll address that in another video. But I think as far as these chokes go, it's well worth levering them off. Even at our transformer prices for those 3 lots of 10, we had over $1, and it took hardly any time at all to flick them off the boards. So if you converted that to an hourly rate, you're going to be looking at pretty good dollars pulling them off the boards. So that ends this video. Hope you enjoyed this one. We will do a few other components that we find on general boards next, and then we'll do a video where we're actually going to say, all right, here's 10 power boards. Should we just sell them as they are? What are we going to get off them in a group amount to make it worthwhile? We're going to look at a whole lot of different things. I'm going to change my mind as I go. I'm going to come up with things that I forgot about. So keep following my channel. Hopefully you enjoy it. Give me some feedback because that'll guide me. I'll see you in the next video. Bye for now.